Money doesn't create behavior, it exposes it. Long before a purchase is made, long before a saving goal is ignored, something subtler is already happening inside the mind. A low-grade tension forms when resources sit unused. Not fear, not greed, just an unease that something available is not being converted into experience. Unused money feels incomplete to the brain. Not because you're irresponsible, not because you lack discipline, but because the human nervous system evolved in environments where stillness was dangerous. For most of human history, resources that weren't used quickly were often lost. Food spoiled, safety shifted, opportunities vanished. What could be used now was safer than what might be used later. That wiring never disappeared, it just followed us into modern life. So when money remains untouched, your nervous system doesn't register wisdom or foresight. It registers suspended potential, and suspended potential feels uncomfortable. Spending resolves that discomfort. It closes the loop. It converts abstract capacity into something concrete. The moment money moves, uncertainty collapses into certainty. The brain relaxes, not because the decision was good, but because the tension ended. Saving does the opposite. Saving keeps the loop open. It asks the brain to tolerate ambiguity, to sit with unused capability, to delay resolution without immediate feedback. From a psychological standpoint, that isn't restraint, it's cognitive labor. This is why spending feels like relief and saving feels like effort, even when both decisions are rational. Most people aren't living in reckless consumption. They're living in quiet emotional negotiation, a subtle internal dialogue that sounds logical on the surface, but is driven by sensation underneath. You don't spend because you desperately want the object. You spend because movement feels safer than waiting. And you don't avoid saving because you're careless. You avoid it because saving offers no immediate emotional resolution. That distinction matters. The popular explanations, discipline, budgeting skill, high-earning people, fall apart under scrutiny. Plenty of intelligent, disciplined, high-earning people struggle to save consistently because the issue isn't competence, it's emotional alignment. Saving asks your brain to prioritize a future version of you that doesn't feel psychologically real. That future self has no face, no voice, no emotional urgency. It's a concept. Meanwhile, the present self is loud, tired, overstimulated, and seeking relief. So the brain chooses the self it can feel. Spending regulates the present self instantly. Saving serves a distant version of you that your nervous system barely recognizes as connected. This isn't a personal flaw, it's a universal bias. Modern life makes it worse. Money now moves frictionlessly. One tap, one click, no pause, no sensory wait. At the same time, we're constantly stimulated, compared, marketed to, and emotionally taxed. The nervous system is rarely calm, which means it's constantly seeking fast resolution. Spending provides that resolution on demand. Saving does not. Most financial advice fails because it treats this as a moral issue, as if people need more willpower or stricter rules. But willpower is finite, and rules don't change emotional meaning, they just increase internal resistance. The real issue is that spending and saving live in completely different emotional categories. Spending is experiential, saving is conceptual. Spending creates sensation, anticipation, excitement, relief, identity reinforcement. Saving, in its raw form, creates none of those. It feels like withholding, and the brain hates withholding without reward. Neurologically, dopamine isn't released when you possess something. It's released when you move towards something. The act of purchasing triggers a prediction of reward. That prediction alone activates pleasure circuits before the outcome even arrives. Saving doesn't trigger a chase. There's no climax, no sensory confirmation, just subtraction. From the brain's perspective, spending looks like gain. Saving looks like loss disguised as responsibility. This is why saving framed as being good never lasts. Morality doesn't motivate the nervous system, emotion does. There's also a social layer quietly shaping behavior. Spending is visible. It communicates taste, momentum, belonging. Even private spending reinforces a self-image of being active and engaged with life. Saving is invisible. No one sees it. No one reacts to it. Often no one even knows it exists. And the human brain is deeply social. Actions that receive feedback feel lighter. Actions that receive silence feel heavier. Silence isn't neutral. To the brain, silence feels like absence, and absence feels like deprivation. Money is also never experienced as one unified resource. It's mentally divided into emotional categories. Earned money feels different from gifted money. Unexpected money feels different from planned income. Future money feels different from cash in hand. Saving almost always gets assigned to the least emotionally engaging category, future abstraction.
That makes it fragile, easy to override, easy to rationalize away. There's also a trust issue most people never articulate. Many people have saved before, briefly, and noticed something uncomfortable. The anxiety didn't disappear. Life didn't suddenly feel lighter. The emotional payoff was delayed, subtle, or unclear. The brain remembers that. Spending, even when fleeting, has a predictable emotional signature. It changes state quickly. The relief may fade, but the pattern is familiar, and the brain prefers familiar rewards over uncertain ones. So when someone says they want to save but keeps spending, they're not lying. They're conflicted between two emotional timelines. One offers immediate regulation, the other offers delayed stability. Immediate regulation usually wins. This is why shame-based approaches backfire. Guilt turns saving into punishment, and the brain instinctively avoids punishment unless the reward is immediate and undeniable. The shift doesn't happen through restriction. It happens through reinterpretation. Saving has to stop meaning not living. It has to start meaning reducing future emotional load. When saving is framed as buying calm rather than denying pleasure, the nervous system responds differently. Calm is an emotional state the brain can imagine. Security is too abstract. Calm is felt. When you save, you're not proving discipline. You're lowering the intensity of future stress responses. You're reducing how often future problems will demand emotional energy. That's not sacrifice. That's regulation. Visibility matters too. The brain needs feedback to stay engaged. When saving remains hidden, it doesn't register as progress. It feels static. Progress doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be perceptible. This is why people feel better paying off small debts than building savings of the same size. One feels like motion, the other feels like waiting. The difference has nothing to do with math and everything to do with perceived movement. The brain doesn't resist saving, it resists stagnation. Saving has to feel active, not passive. There's also an identity shift underneath all of this. Many people unconsciously associate spending with being alive, generous, expressive, or successful. Saving gets associated with being restricted, fearful, or boring. But identities are stories, not facts. When saving becomes part of how you protect your mental space, not limit your enjoyment, resistance softens. Spending doesn't disappear, it becomes intentional. You begin to feel the difference between spending that expands your life and spending that simply numbs discomfort. That awareness alone reduces impulsive behavior without force. The brain doesn't need to be controlled, it needs to be understood. When you realize your brain loves spending because it resolves tension quickly, you stop moralizing your behavior. You stop fighting yourself. And when saving is redesigned to offer emotional feedback, calm, visibility, identity alignment, the brain cooperates. Not dramatically, not overnight, but steadily. You're no longer choosing between pleasure and responsibility. You're choosing between short-lived regulation and long-term ease. And once the nervous system learns what ease feels like, it begins to value it deeply. This isn't about becoming frugal. It's about becoming emotionally fluent. Because money decisions are rarely financial. They're psychological negotiations disguised as logic. When you change what saving means internally, behavior follows, without force. Your brain loves spending because it loves resolution. When saving begins to offer resolution instead of tension, everything shifts.